Well, good morning.
It is.
Last class of 2025. Because I don't think we're having one Wednesday. Sup and sing, but last class. All right. So I got a question. What events have dominated the study of Isaiah up through somewhere around 49? What kind of events? Well, you want the Jeopardy music going in the background? It's been the Assyrian punishment, so to speak, of Israel, and then it was finally capped off by the Babylonian assailing of Jerusalem and taking everybody in Jerusalem and flattening it to the ground. But it's been aggression about who's going to execute God's wrath against Israel because they're going after false gods, right? And that's where there's been a sprinkling of redemption, but most of it's been, a lot of it was the Assyrians. When they took Israel, and then they took everybody and they exported them out of Israel, and they brought in their own people and resettled the land, which became Samaria, which is why they didn't like Samaria. And then you had Assyria that came down into Israel, into Judah, and went through Judah till they got to Jerusalem, till Hezekiah said, God, please help us. And the men were wiped out. Sennacherib went home and his two kids killed him. So you have all that going on, and then finally when Nebuchadnezzar comes down and he takes Jerusalem, brings the people back up, brings them into captivity for 70 years. So it's been a lot of that that's been here. It's going to change. At least it does in 50 and 51 and 52, in those particular chapters. And we're only going to go to 65 because there's only 65 chapters. But what changed is it's more redemption focused. And there's two types of redemption it talks about. One is the redemption of the people from Jerusalem, or actually the people of God's people, out of the Babylonian captivity. And the other one is the redemption of everybody. So it talks about those more. Remember we talked last week or 2 weeks ago, I think you talked about it last week too, is we have maybe 5 instances where there's references to prophecy for Christ. They're going to pick up a lot more in these last 16 chapters. So that kind of sets the stage for what we're going to be talking about today in chapter 51. So we started it in last week in 50. So Israel exhorted, encouraged might be a better word. And so, listen to me, you who pursue righteousness, who seek the Lord. Look to the rock from which you were hewn, and from the quarry from which you were dug. Excavation of a pit. Look to Abraham, your father, and to Sarah, who gave birth to you in pain. And he's making a point of that. When he was but one, I called him. Then I blessed him and multiplied him. So, specifically, who within the Jews is the Lord, through Isaiah, talking to or speaking to? Getting furrowed brows. Then you just look at verse 1. Listen to me, you who pursue righteousness. Is everybody in captivity pursuing righteousness?
No. We've looked at the difference sometimes when it talks about Jacob and when it talks about Israel. Mm-hmm. And Jacob is the people who believe they have it's all inherited by bloodline, and God has to take care of us rather than the righteousness of Israel. So this is probably the Jacob side.
Who pursue righteousness would be the Israel side. It would be the Israel side, yeah, who seek the Lord. But obviously not all of them have gone into captivity throughout the empire, okay? The Assyrians took them into, and they're spread out all over the empire. If you look at, do they still teach the Fertile Crescent in history? Okay, if you look at the Fertile Crescent that goes from Egypt, and then kind of goes through Israel, goes north of Saudi Arabia, and then goes over to Babylon, which is now in Iraq and Iran. If you look at that, that's the Fertile Crescent. They're spread out all over that. What's the Lord asking them to consider? What's the state, if all of what we've studied up to about through 49, maybe a little bit in 50, but mostly 49, is all about bringing them to captivity, how are they doing in captivity? What's their status in captivity? They're slaves. They're all slaves. Okay, so that's not fun. It's not even fun for Daniel. And certainly Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, which is Azariah, Mishael, and Hananiah, I think is the three. That's their original names. Those ones aren't having a good time either. Okay, it's kind of tough for them. So, would you say they're in good times or they're in pain? Mental pain, physical pain. Yeah. So, what's he asking them to consider? So look to Abraham, your father, and to Sarah, who gave birth to you in pain. Good things come from the Lord, but they may come through pain. So the reference in Sarah is reminding them that through the pain, there can be good. But there's going to be pain sometimes. Indeed, the Lord will comfort Zion. He will comfort all her waste places. In her wilderness, he will make like Eden, and her desert like the garden of the Lord. Joy and gladness will be found in her, thanksgiving and sound of a melody. I would have put the sound of a melody, but sound of a melody. So, what's God promising? And is it physical or is it spiritual? What do you think? I think there's more of a spiritual point. I mean, was the wilderness made like Eden? Physically? Was the desert made like the garden of the Lord, the Garden of Eden? It was at the time that they went in and they took it from the Canaanites. But it's been a while, been a few hundred years. So I think there may be a leaning towards more of the spiritual, although the land hasn't been taken care of, okay? I mean, there was a garden there. Where did Christ go the night before he was taken into custody? Garden of Gethsemane. So there were gardens there. So it made it prosperous for them. Do you remember in, was it Ezra or Nehemiah? I think it was Nehemiah, where God says, you wonder why you plant and you figure you're going to get this much and you only get this much. You have flocks and you think you're going to get this much, but you only get this much. You haven't rebuilt your house, my house. You rebuilt your house, but you haven't rebuilt mine. So they haven't got the full blessings yet because God says, I'm waiting for you to rebuild my house. And that's why I did what I did to Cyrus and what I did to Artaxerxes and what I did to Xerxes, what I did to Darius, okay? The impression, what I motivated them to do was to give you all the people, all the resources that you needed to rebuild my temple, and you haven't rebuilt my temple. So you're not getting the blessings you were expecting because you haven't rebuilt my house. So there's a physical aspect to it, but I think there's a spiritual aspect to it too. Pay attention to me, O people, and give ear to me. O my nation, for a law will go forth from me, and I will set, or cause to rest, my justice for a light of the peoples. My righteousness is near. My salvation is gone forth. And my arms will judge the peoples. The coastlands will wait for me, and for my arm they will wait expectantly. So how about, what's the law that's going to go out from God that will be a light to the peoples? Remember, it's more about redemption. It's the new law, okay? Have they already got the old law? So it can't be that. It's got to be the new law. And what is Christ that John talked about in John 1:1? In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, okay? So that's the Word. He's going to bring what the law is, but the law that he brings is a law of love. So there's the first indication of redemption through Christ. If it is Christ, was his arrival near? Because he said, my righteousness is near. What year was this when Isaiah was writing? It's about 600 BC, 650 BC. So it's in terms of us, is a long time, isn't it? Considering I'm not going to live for 500 years, I wouldn't want to live for 500 years. I'm beginning to fall apart right now at 73. So, what does he mean it's near? Pull this one out from 2 Peter. And it's really in verse 8. This is talking about when he's going to judge. And everybody at this particular point is thinking, when Peter wrote it, is the Lord's coming and he'll be tomorrow, maybe by the end of the week. You see that going through, and then it's kind of like, well, maybe he's not going to come back. And Peter's addressing when people says, he's not ever going to come back. You guys are wasting your time. He's gone, and you're never going to see him again. And that's where Peter is addressing it. He says, when he comes back, it's going to be the day of judgment. It's not going to be like when he came and he was here for the 40 days following his death, burial, and resurrection. It's going to be quite different. And he says, but to the Lord, one day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is like one day. Some people use that as a Rosetta Stone to interpret things from Revelation. But what's he really trying to say? What's Peter really trying to say? No. Time means nothing to God. You know, when he says it's near, to an eternal being, near, $500, 500 years, is a blink of the eye. It means nothing. Because time really doesn't mean anything to him, because he exists in a realm where there is no time. It can't be time. Time's part of the creation. Time's not part of him. It's part of what he created. So you can kind of see when he says it's near, to him, it is near, because it's from a perspective of 1,000,000 years, 500 years is nothing. From a perspective of 1,000,000,000,000 years, 500 years is nothing. Lift up your eyes to the sky, then look to the earth beneath, for the sky will vanish like smoke, and the earth will wear out like a garment, and its inhabitants will die in a like manner, like gnats. But my salvation will be forever, and my righteousness will not wane or be broken. Listen to me, you who know righteousness, a people in whose heart is my law. Do not fear the reproach of man, nor be dismayed at their revilings. For the moth will eat them like a garment, and the grub will eat them like the wool. But my righteousness will be forever, and my salvation to all generations. So, what's the Lord comparing in verses 6 and 8?
He's comparing his salvation to creation. Basically, creation wears out, and his salvation is forever.
His comparison is Where you're at is temporal. It's going to end. Where I'm at is eternal. Don't worry about the people that are trying to get in the way of being eternally with me. So his comparison is to say between the temporal and the eternal. Why should those who wholeheartedly dedicated themselves to God not fear reproach and be dismayed at man's revilings? Didn't he write in the New Testament? I forget whether it was Peter or whether it was Paul. But certainly when Christ was here, he says, don't be surprised. If they persecuted me, they're going to persecute you. So when you talk about being dismayed at people who are persecuting you because of Christ, don't be surprised. He said it back then. Saw it again in the New Testament, but certainly you see it here. And he's talking about the final judgment in these particular verses. Awake, awake, put on strength, O arm of the Lord. Awake, as in the days of old, the generations of long ago. Was it not for you who cut Rahab in pieces, who pierced the dragon? Who's the Rahab being referred to here? This one threw me a curve.
The infidelity of God's people being compared to harlotry, and so I think idols when I see Rahab here.
Think idols? Okay. Who do we know? Or we used to tell the stories to our kids about who's that Rahab? Jericho.
The innkeeper prostitute that she knew God and she knew that they'd come in.
She protected it. Okay, so that's where my brain went. I went, Rahab, who cut Rahab in pieces. I went, that doesn't make any sense. But if you go back to Psalms, glorious things are spoken of you, O city of God, Selah. I shall mention Rahab, Egypt, and Babylon among those who know me. Behold, Philistia and Tyre with Ethiopia, which is Cush. This one was born there. So, context here, and also later on in 89. O Lord of hosts, who is like you, O mighty Lord? Faithfulness also surrounds you. You rule the swelling seas when its waves rise. You still them. You yourself crushed Rahab, Egypt, like the one who was slain. You scattered your enemies with your mighty arm, the arm of your might, which goes back into the arm that was sought by God. So, who's Rahab? Or what is Rahab? Remember, he's talking about redeeming them out of Babylon. So he's reminding them, he already reminded them about Sarah bringing forth children in pain, but from that he'd be multiplying Abraham. Here what he's talking about, he's saying, remember, I brought you out of Egypt. I crushed Egypt and brought you out of Egypt, the most powerful empire in the world at that time. So what he's talking about here is it was not you who cut Rahab in pieces. The follow-on could be, it was me who cut Rahab into pieces, who was Egypt, and brought you out of Egypt. Remember, I did that? Nobody thought you could do that. I brought all of you out of Egypt. Don't you think I can bring you out of Babylon? How about, who's the dragon being referred to here? Any ideas? I'm definitely going to have pages left. How about this one out of Ezekiel? We study Ezekiel, right? No. I can't even get Matt to bring a study on Ezekiel. Ezekiel's a tough book. Son of man, set your face against Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and prophesy against him and against all Egypt. Speak and say, thus says the Lord, Yahweh, behold, I am against you, Pharaoh, king of Egypt, the great monster, Tannim, or in some context, dragon, that lies in the midst of the rivers, Nile. So he's talking about the great monster as being Egypt. Some texts say dragon. I didn't pull anything out of the New Testament, but if I would have pulled something out of the New Testament, where would it have been? Revelation, okay. Who or what is the dragon there? Satan, okay. It's unclear to me whether he's talking about Satan at that particular point or whether he's talking about, because he was already talking about redemption, redeeming you from some person or thing. What city is referred to in the New Testament, specifically Revelation, as being the evil city? It's not Egypt. It's Babylon. So I think what he's talking about from the dragon here is probably Babylon, the great monster, the one that was a threat. So what he's saying is, I took you out of Egypt. I'm going to take you out of Babylon. And if anybody who scoffs and says that can't be done, you're too powerful, just wait and see. Was it not you who dried up the sea, the waters of the great deep, who made the depths of the sea a pathway for the redeemed to cross over? So the ransom of the Lord will return and come with joyful shouting to Zion, and everlasting joy will be on their heads. They will obtain gladness and joy, and sorrow and sighing will flee away. So what's the point he's making? What's he reminding the people of? You know, he says, didn't I do this to Egypt? Am I capable not of doing this to Babylon? What's the point he's making in verse 10? He says, I've dried up the sea, which was what he did when they left Egypt. But the great waters of the deep, who made the depths of the sea a pathway for the redeemed to cross over. He's talking about, do you remember what I did when I brought you out of Egypt? Do you remember how I destroyed the army of the greatest nation, the powerful nation? So he's continuing on that same thought, that same point to say, of course I can bring you out of Babylon. When it's right, when the 70 years are up, I'm going to take you out. Who are the ransomed that will return, and from where will they return? It's the remnant coming out of the crescent. All over the place. Most of them are going to come out of Babylon, but there's ones that have gone into Syrian captivity. They're now into Babylonian captivity, and they're going to come out. But those that are seeking righteousness. I think you and I, when we went through it, we estimated there was probably less than 50,000 that went back to Jerusalem. Out of all the people, hundreds of thousands, probably millions that went into captivity, the remnant was less than 50,000 that came back to Jerusalem to build. It's pretty small remnant. But he does refer to them as ransomed. And I think I'll talk more about that in a couple of verses. I, even I, who am he who comforts you. Who are you that you are afraid of man who dies, and the Son of Man who is made like grass, that you have forgotten the Lord your Maker, who stretched out the heavens and laid out the foundations of the earth, that you fear continually all day long because of the fury of the oppressor, as he makes ready to destroy. But where is the fury of the oppressor? So What's God, through Isaiah, addressing his faithful that applies to us today here? He just said, I took you out of Egypt. You know, I parted the seas. I made it dry land for you to walk on, which was, I guess from examples, it was a smaller example, right? Now I went to a bigger example. He says, who stretched out the heavens and laid the foundations of the earth. That's right. It's like, don't you think I can redeem you? And this is physical redemption, but I think this is as much spiritual redemption as well. He says, don't worry about it. And there, I don't remember where the quote is, but in the New Testament it says, don't fear man who can destroy the body. Fear those that can destroy your soul. And I think that's kind of the point he's making here, is to say, don't worry about the oppressors that are here on the earth. Don't be afraid of man, because there's something bigger than where you're at. Think beyond the confines of the creation. There's more to it. There's an eternal existence. And everybody's going there. We're going to one place, we're going to another. But everybody's going there. Everybody is going to be eternal. It's just where you spend it. So I think that's what he's talking about here, is to say, start thinking more and focusing on the eternal and not the physical. Not the here and now, but what comes to be. The exile, when in chains, will soon be set free and will not die in dungeon, nor will his bread be lacking. For I am the Lord your God, who stirs up the sea and its waves roar. I have put my words in your mouth and have covered you with the shadow of my hand, to establish, plant, the heavens, to found the earth, and to say to Zion, you are my people. Who are the exiles and what will be set free from? This is easy. This one, I think he's talking more about the physical. So who are the exiles? Who got exiled? Judah. Jerusalem was the final one. You had all the people that were in Judah that the Assyrians took and spread out all over their empire. But they didn't resettle Judah. They took it and they conquered it, and then they used that as a path to go down to Egypt and to Ethiopia and take Egypt and Ethiopia. So that's the Assyrian Empire went down to Ethiopia. Babylonian Empire was bigger, and then the Persian Empire went more east and then west. Everybody stopped before they got to Greece, though. Notice that. They didn't go farther west than really the edge of the Fertile Crescent. They didn't go over into Macedonia. But the exiles here would be all the Jews that had been taken up into captivity. And what he's talking about is those will be set free. Now, was everybody set free? They were. Everybody had an opportunity to go back to Jerusalem. Only about 50,000 went. The rest of them stayed where they were. They all had opportunities. What does he mean? He has put his words in their mouth and covered them with the shadow of his hand. Didn't he show them What did he show him was righteous? What did he hold up as a standard? Didn't he give him the standard as being the law? A standard they could never live up to. But he said, if you want to be perfect, don't you have to keep every part of the law? Anybody ever do it? One person did. Rouse yourself, rouse yourself. I think this was earlier too. Arise, O Jerusalem, who have drunk from the Lord's hand the cup of his anger. The chalice reeling, you have drained to the dregs. There is none to guide her among the sons she has borne, nor is there one to take her by the hand among all the sons she has reared. These two things have befallen you. Who will mourn for you? The devastation and destruction, famine and sword. How shall I comfort you? Your sons have fainted. They lie helpless in the head of every street. Like an antelope in a net, full of the wrath of the Lord, the rebuke of your God. What do they mean that he has drunk from the cup of the Lord's anger? What happened?
Yeah.
They were the Lord's wrath. He's another term for God, and you see it in Isaiah frequently, is he's the Lord of armies. He was the one behind the Assyrian invasion. He was the one behind the Babylonian invasion. Okay? He controlled them. He controlled Cyrus. So behind, God is using these men, that some of them may have known it, some of them, I don't know that any of the Syrians knew it, but God was using them to dispense his cup of wrath for the people that have left him and said, there's that God over there, but we like this God over here, this pagan God, a lot better. So they all have drunk from it. And what he's kind of saying is, it's drained. It's over. Rouse yourself, arise. Okay, it's over. That is over. I'm going to change things, which is you sent all the way through 51 to this particular point, is to say, look, all these things happen to you, and you're in a situation right now where it says these two who will mourn for you, those that have befallen while you were in captivity, because. How long have they been in captivity from Jerusalem? How many years? 70. So there were people, obviously, that went into captivity, that died in captivity. There's a whole new group, and there's a couple that are left over. There's not a lot of them, but there's some of them that were probably 5, 10 years old when they were taken into captivity, and now they're in their 80s. And they get to go back. You remember when they were rebuilding the temple and they got the foundation laid? There was two groups that were there. One group was cheering. That would have been the young ones. They hadn't seen the temple before. And then there was this group of the older ones. What were they doing? They were crying because they remembered what that temple looked like before Jerusalem was destroyed. And they said, wow, we got a long ways to go. Because all they had done was laid the foundation. So you don't have anybody to mourn those that have been lost, and your sons have fainted. They lie helpless at the street. Kind of goes up to, there is none to take her by the hand among the sons she has reared. In other words, you've got all these younger people coming up. They really don't know God very well. They've heard some things about God, but have they seen the law? Have they heard the law while they were in 70 years of captivity? They never heard the law. Never once have they heard the law. The first time they hear it is when Ezra goes through it and speaks the law. He goes through and reads the first 5 books, the Pentateuch. That's the first time in 70 years they've heard it. So you kind of see how this is all going together, is to say, I'm gonna reinstitute all this for you. I'm gonna take you out of captivity. I'm gonna help you. Wake up. It's time. Now's the time. So that's what Isaiah is talking about here. Why is there none to guide them? They haven't maintained the temple. They had no temple. They had no worship. They had no sacrifices to give because they didn't have anywhere to give the sacrifices at. They didn't have anybody to teach because they didn't have the scribes that were there and the priests that were there to teach the law of God, because they were broken as a nation. Yeah, now there were some that had to be educated, and if you were educated, you were valuable. They would have taken them as slaves. But you had a lot of the older people and like that, they just said, leave them, they're worthless. They can't fight us, and all they're going to do is be a drain on us, so just leave them there. I'd have been one of them, probably. What's the current state of mind of those in captivity? Particularly those that have been born in captivity. They're helpless. No, they're saying, I'm in captivity, I'm going to be in captivity the rest of my life. It is the way it is, and it's never going to change. And what God is saying, well, what Isaiah is saying through God, is to say, you get ready, this is going to be a huge change. I mean, it was. When did the change occur? In a night. In one night. When Cyrus took Babylon, actually Cyrus took Babylon and Darius took Nineveh. They did it at the same time. The political landscape changed in a night. The empire changed from the Babylonian Empire to the Mede-Persian Empire in a night. It was that fast. And what he's saying is, it's changed. All of it's changed. Therefore, please hear this, you afflicted, you who are drunk, but not with wine. Thus says the Lord, even your God, who contends for his people. Behold, I have taken out of your cup, I've taken out of your hand the cup of reeling, the chalice of my anger. You will never drink it again. I will put it into the hand of your tormentors, who have said to you, to your soul, lie down that we may walk over you. You have even made your back like the ground and like the street for those who walk over it. What were those who were afflicted drunk with? Wasn't wine. Well, Doug can address this next week. I'll give you a week to think about it.